How is this? Okay, this is chips, right?
The chips is down there.
That's $130,000 more.
Yeah.
Where is it on the revenue side of this?
So this is
It's not baked in here because this is sales tax.
no, she doesn't include that 130 in there.
Okay. But it will be in there.
Yeah, yes. And one of the things you said is, some years when they give us this chips, they don't give us all. There's a couple, like this pothole, right?
No.
Sometimes, some years those have been questioned, it might not happen, so that's why we just went to using that figure. But that's why I kept saying here, this figure, pretty much we've been told that by people that should tell us that, you know. That's what time to go there. Sure. I'd like to welcome everybody to the May 1st, 2024 Town Board meeting. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the meeting to order. Anybody have any minutes? She didn't finish them, so we don't have any minutes. Do we have any public concerns? If we don't have any public concerns, we'll go to Andrew to talk to us about what he's come up with.
Yeah, thank you, Brent. So I just passed out a series of drawings, different design options that we had put together for you, as well as a budget spreadsheet looking at how these different options might budget out. As you know, the original design that we had completed back in January of this year, we had Trophy Point estimate that project, the construction of that project. And if you look at the design spreadsheet, renovation, addition, site work, they were, once we kind of removed some contingencies out of their budget, we'd be looking at a hard construction cost of like roughly 10.7, 10.8 million for the original design. Now that's construction cost. Once we added the project soft cost at 15% and then a 10% project contingency, that project was going over 13 million. So that's the top line of the budget spreadsheet, and it's also the first sheet in your drawing option packet that you see. Once we had that back, I spoke with Brent. You know, the project budget was slightly higher, 20–25% higher on the construction side than we had anticipated, mostly due to essentially inflation since COVID, right? Materials and things, everything's shot up quite a bit. So we wanted to try to make an effort to reduce the project budget by reducing the scope of the project and bringing down the construction budget. So the series of design options we put together, we started these options by really essentially grabbing the lowest hanging fruit from the project where we see we can easily cut construction costs from the project. If you look at the second page of the drawings, design option 1, fairly simple. All we were doing here was eliminating some of the renovations on the Zamboni wing of the building, essentially leaving a lot of those spaces alone. This right here, just alone, that reduction in scope would drop the total project cost to just under 13 million. So there was roughly $500,000 in savings by not renovating those spaces. Obviously, it's not a lot, but we wanted to kind of show the steps we took to get through these design options and break down the costs. Design option 2, the next page, essentially we took the same thing, we took the same reduction in renovation on the Zamboni wing of the building, and we also cut the second floor warming room off of the addition, which is 2,190 square feet. This is a much more sizable reduction. We'd be cutting essentially from 13.6 down to 11.6, so $2 million of savings in the project by reducing renovations in the Zamboni wing and cutting the second floor of the addition. I would note to you that in this option, we could still design the lobby to support a future second floor, so that is an option in any of these phases to plan for the future with a second floor addition if it's ever desired or warranted. Design option 3 essentially just kind of continues on the path of reducing the size of the addition. In this respect, we've cut not only the second floor addition, but we've also reduced the locker room wing slightly. We've taken out the 5th locker room. We had an overflow locker room. In the original design, we had 5 locker rooms. Here we said, okay, we can probably get away with 4. Let's shorten the locker room addition some. Still have a referee's room there in that space. And still have the independent bathrooms and showers for each of the locker rooms. So this was a little bit further reduced from the 11.6 down to like 11.2 million. So about a $400,000 savings by cutting down the addition further. Option 4 just kind of continues down the same logic, but in this option, we would go with gang bathrooms in the hallway, the corridor of the locker room addition, rather than separate bathrooms. So that's where we were able to make a reduction. We still kept the referee's room, but we'd go with a gang-style bathroom that essentially served the 4 locker rooms on that wing. That would bring the total project cost, you can see, down to below 11 million. Option 5, again, this is a further reduction in scope. At this point, we've really reduced that locker room wing addition to the minimum that it can really be to be 4 locker rooms with bathrooms. There's not really any way to cut that further, I think, programmatically. But what we've done here is we've cut the lobby end of the building. We've cut that addition down to save some square footage. And we saved about $250,000 more by taking that approach. And then option 6A and 6B were essentially, after I put together the initial 5 options, I spoke with Brent. We wanted to put something together where we completely eliminated the locker room addition and looked to essentially reconstruct 4 locker rooms within the existing building. Currently there are 2 locker rooms behind the bleachers. There's the large one down in the corner, and then the 2 small ones up in the upper left-hand corner. So with this option, although they're spaced apart throughout the building, we could get 4 locker rooms in the facility. I do have concerns that we would be taking over spaces and programs that are used for other things to put those locker rooms there. So I'm not sure functionally, although we're showing the locker rooms working, I think we'd be short on things like storage, an office space on the ground floor for the staff, for the rink, things of that nature. But I wanted to put this together to show you what something like that might look like. Now 6A essentially would keep a 2-story addition on the end of the building. So that would be a 2-story warming room addition for 6A. 6B, the difference between 6A and 6B, 6B is essentially a single-story addition for the warming room off the end of the building. Even that project, the 6B, which is the furthest scope reduced option, still has a total project cost of $7.8 million. And I want to kind of go through the budget spreadsheet to kind of identify where the costs are falling in all of the options. So you can see the original design across the top here. We've talked about that 13.6 total project cost. Option 1, you can see we essentially, the only thing that's changed there is really the renovation construction cost. So we just took that $500,000 savings in renovation. From there down, the renovation costs really do not change. The 4.6 is really a bottom line for renovating that existing arena with a gut renovation. So that's siding, roofing, mechanical, plumbing, electrical. That's essentially to take the existing facility and to revamp that into a brand new facility. You know, just the renovation side. I don't see us really reducing that unless we reduce the renovation scope. However, I think that facility needs a full renovation. The electrical systems are outdated, the plumbing. There are very few mechanicals there. Through this project, we'd be providing full ventilation, heating, even cooling for the summer program. So I just don't see us really being able to carve away at that number with renovating the facility. If you were to just even take those costs, and let's say we were to not do an addition at all, and just take that 4.6 and carry it through and add in 25% for soft costs and contingency, just to renovate that building in place without an addition, you're gonna be looking at a $6 million roughly project. So just to renovate what you have fully, fully renovate that building would be.
So at $6 million, you're gonna have a totally renovated building on the inside?
Yes,
And the
inside
outside?
and out. Yes, project costs. Yes. However, you're working inside the footprint, which has its limitations. But that's a baseline. I just want to kind of give you that as that's what the cost would be to renovate that facility in place. We have talked about, just comparatively from where we are with these options, like a new facility. Somebody mentioned the cost, what would it cost to build this facility brand new from the ground up? It's a $17–18 million project plus all day, because we have to not only build the site infrastructure and all the site utilities, the parking lot, the foundation, the steel structure, the ice rink, the actual slab and the chilling equipment, which we're not touching in this project, just to get to that level, just to actually add something like that into a project today is a couple $2 million. So there's a lot that we're starting with that is good there. The foundation, the steel frame, the ice surface. It's, even if you were to look at your top option here at 13.5, you're still, $5 to $6 million ahead of where you'd be building a new building of the same size with the same program. So those are kind of your levels. You have, I think, a $6 million renovation, very, very basic project, just essentially make that building completely renovated at $6 million. You've got these different options that kind of work up from there to 13.5. And then, just comparatively, I always think it's good to look at what the replacement cost would be on the entire building and compare it to where these figures fall. So I think in a nutshell, where we have to move from here is ultimately determine, what the budget, what a budget for the town looks like that's sustainable, that we can work towards and build a scope towards, and ultimately design the project and bid the project out. We've talked about phasing the project. I think in any of these options, we would look to do that. We could phase any of these options. Even a renovation could be phased. So we can spread this project out over time if it's desirable. But it's always best, we need to really master plan and zero in on what does the end and final goal look like for that facility, and then go back and then phase the design to that, to that ultimate goal, rather than jumping into like a first phase without knowing what the whole future looks like. So, does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, without the addition, is it 4 locker rooms? That's the 4 small locker room, or smaller?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Very small. It's not, my opinion is, it's not practical at all.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Do we need 4 locker rooms?
Yes.
If you were to just do 4 locker rooms, renovate and put 4 locker rooms back in the existing facility, I think you're going to be programmatically deficient on, it's not the locker room so much as it is, I don't have concessions in the existing building once we do that. Those had to go out in an addition. It's just space, really.
Yep.
While trying to maintain a healthy amount of bleacher seating and not cut away at that. Could we get rid of the bleacher seating and fill that whole wing with program? We could, but then you're going to be lacking on the bleachers. So it's, it's a trade-off, really. If we're going to work with inside that existing footprint, what's going to ultimately suffer? Where are we going to take space from to make the program work? Right now, really none of the locker rooms, the only locker room that's really sized appropriately would be the one at the very end of the building, the varsity locker room. The rest are, really too small for a varsity sized team. None of them have bathrooms within them. So it's really just a lack of space in the existing building. I do think we would have to majorly reduce the spectator seating to make it work. And then the other side to this too is the continued talks on, funding, you know, and the grants, the grant research. I don't think really there, you know, if you were to submit, say, the original design for grants and then reduce the project, I don't think that would be a problem. I think that's something worth discussing with Morgan. Projects change all the time after grants are received. You're gonna get the biggest wow factor and bang for your buck at these agencies submitting a big project, and it's gonna be, I think, more favorably looked at. Than reducing and then submitting a reduced project. We can still do this after the grant process has started, so.
I had some conversation about this with someone in the community this past weekend, and they brought up a good point that we could simply just put this out to a vote.
Yep.
Just put it on the ballot and get, you know, then you get the public feedback. And, you know, our job in doing that would be, say we take the original design and factor in, there's gonna be pretty safe assumption we're gonna get some grant money on a project like this.
I think that's safe to say, it's just where it falls.
Yeah, and I think it's totally fair to be on the conservative side of things with that, put it out to a vote to the public with the implications on the tax rate. And they can decide for us.
It's like when we did the Bonnie Castle deal, we had two votes there. One was to buy it or not, and the second one was to allow the town to borrow $5.5 million to finance the construction. So you're saying it makes a lot of sense to put it out to vote. I agree.
I mean, who are we? I mean, we're a representation of this community. If the community comes in here and tells us they're all right with us spending $10 million on a new facility, it's pretty, you're giving everybody an opportunity at that point.
Yeah.
I don't know, I got a feeling on this. I just worry about the taxpayers in this community, what they can afford. I mean, right now, yes, the school budget got their funding for this year. Next year, we don't know where the school funding's gonna be from the state. Their tax rate could go up. We're doing a reval right now, and that tells me the taxes in this town are gonna go up. And now you wanna put this out for a vote in November, possibly spend $13 million just to do a water project with $6 million. It's a 30-year payback. It costs, you know, so I gotta look out for the seniors and the other people in this community. I think what's the most important thing in there to me is the bathrooms. Everybody complains about those bathrooms when they go in to use them. And yes, Andrew, I can't argue with you. Some of that infrastructure's gotta be upgraded, the electrical and the plumbing. Couldn't agree with you more on that. But I think it's gotta be right back to a basic project, what the taxpayers and the residents in this community can afford. And I'm not in favor of going out and spending a lot of millions of dollars of their money. Even if they do approve it. They went up and approved Bonnie Castle, and what did we do? We sat on that for we're still sitting on it 4 years later. Never turned a penny up there. I mean.
I think you make a good point, Dale and Sean, and thanks, Andrew, for this, because it really kind of lays it out. And I think, you know, expectation management when it comes to the taxpayers and all our constituents, looking at, hey, you know, what like projects have come up with for grants, and then looking at, when we do an analysis of the budget, you know what I mean, what is within our, you know, priorities and what is within our bandwidth, to make sure that we're being good stewards, Dale. I hear you loud and clear, and I totally understand, and I'm with you. I think, one, getting, to your point, when it came to the stables and that stuff, yeah, it's one thing to get what the public wants, but we also have to educate the public on what we can afford. And
Exactly.
living within our means. So,
Right.
I think, you know, looking at, and raising the expectation management, raising everybody's awareness of, okay, here are your 6 options. Here's kind of a ballpark like facility, like grant application, 30 to 40%, whatever that looks like. And then this is our pathway, either over a double fiscal year type of thing, in a phased approach, to see where it's very sustainable, very palatable, and that we can afford it. That's what we owe the taxpayers. And to your point, you're spot on. It's one thing, everybody wants the best facilities. We talked about that. Everybody wants the best cars, but we need to live within our means now, and preparing to make sure that we can adjust and tackle some of the things that come up every day here, and you're faced with, Brent, every day, that we're going to have to do, the must-dos. So I think we just need to do a little bit more, you know, education, crunching the numbers, looking, you know, at what we're looking at as far as grants, what we can afford budget-wise, in a 2 to 3 year look sustainable, even though we're paying it off in 30, like you alluded to, Dale, and then educate our population. And then I'm all for the vote, making sure that they know, hey, this is what you can expect. On both ends, because with Bonnycastle Stable, let's not repeat the same mistakes that we've made in the past. Let's learn from them, and move forward. So, we had a valuable, learning experience up there, and I don't want to repeat that either. Right, wrong, or indifferent. I think inflation, a lot of scenarios came into that scenario too. It wasn't just we couldn't afford it, you know, inflation happened, and it just made it unrealistic for the district and the town to afford it. So I think we're going about this right. We're asking the tough questions. We're having Andrew and his team come back with options to make sure that we have the taxpayers' best interests at the forefront. So I like where we're going. I think we need to really crunch the numbers, look at what grants are out there, and look what we can sustain and can afford over the long haul. So spot on, Dale. Great points, and Sean.
I think
Andrew,
Sean
let me ask-
hit the nail on the head by saying it. We need to figure out how this is gonna affect the tax rate. I think, Sean, you've been plugging different numbers into our budget, so you probably have an idea.
I don't right offhand, to be honest with you, but, yeah, it's, you know, in my conversation throughout the community in regards to this project is a lot of positivity. You know, I've had a couple people on the opposite side of things, but the reality of it's this, that rink has been like that for 50 years,
yeah.
right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, what's to become of it?
Yeah.
Are we gonna let it rot in the ground? Because the problem with Bonnycastle Stables, inflation's not going away. Doesn't matter. Take a look over every decade, nothing comes cheaper in 10 years.
No.
So, you put a couple Band-Aids on it until what? We're just gonna let it look like that? We're just gonna, you know, I'm passionate about this particular project. It's the eyesore of our community, okay? Whether you have a kid playing hockey anywhere, which all 3 of my kids do, you hear about it. You have the ugliest, most non-functional rink in the North Country.
But we have the best ice.
And I love it. That's the truth. I mean, it's a bit of a holy grail for guys who lace them up down there, because that's what it's like. So, and saying that, obviously there's due diligence to do, but you could, you know, like I said, put this down on paper. I mean, we can all, you know, question whoever we want on our private time too, but, if this goes out to the public, it tells us a lot.
I understood you right. We can start writing grants for the whole project and then downscale afterwards?
You can, and probably be right now what I would recommend to keep that ball rolling.
That's what I'm thinking.
Get that
Give
stuff
us a better
submitted.
handle on what we're gonna get for grants.
You know, go for everything, and we can always scale back. Once you obtain a grant, there, you know, there's flexibility. Typically they're percentage based, you know, it's not like, okay, you said it was 13.5, we're gonna give you 4. If you cut your project back to 8, you're not gonna get 4, you might get 2.
Right.
So it'll change the numbers, but the idea, the acceptance of an award is really what remains. And at that point, once they award you a grant, they wanna give you the money.
Yeah.
It's difficult for them to,
I was gonna say, on both of our grants that we did, the one with the village and our other one,
you know,
we changed the grants after we did it, and they, you know, they worked
they're
with us.
amenable.
And they told us, you know, what we had to do to follow what guidelines to stay within their bounds to still get the grant.
I mean, if you submit the whole thing and, you know, you get an agency that really wants to fund this and it's a really decent split or something, I think it could change how you see and what you scale back on. Versus if you scale it back and submit it, you're gonna lose time more than anything. And time right now, it's important because of that inflation. I mean, Trophy Point's saying in construction, we're looking at 8.9% inflation year over year right now. And they're trying to control that with interest rates, but it's still pretty high. So if this waits a year, you know, if these budgets change, they'll go up 9% more. Everything we've used really in these budgets has been broken out from their numbers. You know, and they're a professional estimating firm. I trust their figures. You know, it's really good information to have right now, but it's just gonna go up year after year. Right now, these numbers are actually looking at this project being built a year and a half from now. So you know, if you were to build this today, which we're not in a position to, it would cost less than this, but we have to look at what it'll cost in the future. So we have factored that into these figures. You know, I think really, again, I think the important thing is to get the ball rolling on the grant, you know, work, and then those submissions. This can be a continuing discussion on really the scope and what's important, how much the town is really, you know, capable of, you know, where's the town comfortable at dollar-wise of putting forth, regardless of how much you get in the grant, what do the numbers look like on the town side? And then pairing that then, once you determine that, once you see what you get for grants, you can start to really zero in on what the project becomes and put that out to a vote. I do believe too, right, the votes are an informative vote. So if it's voted through with the public, it doesn't mean you necessarily have to do the project. You still vote on it yourselves. And if they vote it down, I mean, you could also still then vote to do the project. So I believe those types of votes are just an informative litmus test on the community to determine, you know, what are everybody's thoughts on the project and how it impacts their taxes. To this point, everybody, I've heard a lot of good, positive things. I don't think anybody really realizes what it'll do to the tax rate. That could, you know, change some people's vision or thoughts on it. But I think that's all information that we could work to put together, you know, and deliver it informatively at another future public meeting before a vote. So.
I think collectively as a whole, you know, for the board, are we all, I mean, in agreement that one of these 6 options is a viable option?
I am.
I am. I mean, even if it's at the lowest level, you know what I mean? I think that's palatable. I think we do need to do, like I alluded to, look at the sustainability for, you know, where's the money gonna come from in the long haul. But I think
6A and 6B, I question a little bit. And back to Andrew's point earlier, it's what it can really facilitate in there. Like, and that might not, that's talking strictly on what I'm seeing in front of me, Andrew, like actually on 6A and 6B, these locker rooms look actually smaller than what's in there. Is that the truth? Is that the case?
No, they're smaller than the addition, yeah. Would they work? They would be manageable.
Manageable, yeah.
Yeah, I think you could make it work. They're not as ideal as building a new locker room in an addition where you have control over the size of it.
So, 2, 3, and 4, which would, I'll say they're down on the Zamboni end.
Yeah.
Are 2 and 3 what 3 and 4 are to you and I right now? 2 and 3 in the new design here.
2 and 3 are bigger than the existing locker room, but not the same size as 2 of those put together.
Okay.
See, because we're knocking out, in this
You're taking out the bathrooms on the other side.
Yeah.
Okay.
The advantage, we did in this concept though, we're able to put bathrooms back in each of the locker rooms. It would add cost to the reconstruction, we have figured that into the numbers.
Okay.
But if you're gonna go that route, you know, it is good to have bathrooms close or within the locker room, so you don't have players and spectators in the same bathroom.
Yep.
So that would be definitely in any of these options, it's good to just separate those player bathrooms, player and referee, and then the spectator.
Can I ask you a question, Andrew?
Yeah.
Say we go ahead and we get some grant money and we decide we wanna move forward with this project, how soon would it be shovel ready?
Well, we have a lot of work to do to take this through final design. Once we have a go-ahead, once we understand the grants, and once the town understands where they're comfortable financially, and that could be before or after a vote, we'd move forward into basically a design contract to take this from this point right through final design and then bid it. It'd probably be a 6 to 8 month, probably a 6-month design time frame where it's myself and then a series, 4 or 5 different engineers working on this pretty steadily to get the bid package ready, and the project manual. I mean, the drawing set for a project like this is gonna be 120 to 150 sheets. It's a lot of work, but it's very detailed, and that's what gives the contractors enough information to bid it accurately. Because it's a lump sum bid proposal. You're gonna take the low bid, as long as the bid qualifications are okay. But it would be a low bid environment where we put this out publicly to bid. It would have multiple primes. We'd have a GC, we'd have a plumbing prime contractor, mechanical, electrical. Site work would probably be part of the GC scope. So it's minimally a 4 prime, contract for the work. If we have to almost in a way too work backwards from when would we want to start, be shovel ready on a project like this. If you were to start this next year, this project in the next building season, you really wouldn't want to start it any later than August, to get the additions enclosed and get the new siding and roofing on, to then continue work inside throughout the winter. Any later than that, and I think then you're gonna be, fighting winter with getting the additions and the existing siding and roofing replaced. So if you work back from there, say August, that's as late. You gotta have roughly a 2-month window in between start of construction and when you open bids. That's really just to get your ducks in a row on submittals, contract review. We're gonna have to get AIA contracts together, all the submittals, schedule values. There's a whole bunch of documents that are gonna go back and forth between us and the contractors. So looking at that, you've gotta be opening bids really in the spring to start in the fall. If you're opening bids in the spring, you take 6 months of design time before putting it out to bid, and you're looking at, we have to start the design process probably no later than the last quarter of this year to have it ready to bid next spring. Ideally, if we could advance that faster and start design on a project earlier, the better, to give us a little bit of cushion time in there. But that's I think, a worst-case scenario on the schedule. If we miss that, if any portion of that misses those deadlines, it just really pushes construction into the spring of '26. And so again, like, that's a 6-month delay. You're now, when the contractors are bidding and pricing this project, they're using 2026 pricing on all their materials. Labor rates have gone up. That's where you're subject to that increase in inflation again. So.
Thank you.
I don't have any other questions, does anybody else?
No, thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Drew.
Thanks, Andrew.
If you guys have any questions anytime, feel free to reach out to me by email or phone. And if we wanna come up with another you know, if there's ideas on, you know, taking any of these options and creating subsets of these options, we can do that. I do think it's prudent to submit the original design, because we have all that documentation, and the design is very comprehensive. I don't see a negative, you know, I don't see any negativity in submitting that, putting the grants together as if you're gonna move forward with that. There's no commitment on your end to that project by doing so.
No brainer.
Yeah. Start chasing the grants.
We need to go the grant application road as soon as possible.
That's our critical
Yesterday.
path, I would say. The grant timeline is really gonna be what sets our entire timeline for the project up. Cause I don't see us really finalizing the project budget and scope until we know what the grants look like. And I think it would be difficult to finalize any of this without knowing how much money's out there. That's gonna then tell you how much the town really is on the hook for any of these options.
Oh, and it's a game changer as far as what we can afford too.
Exactly.
So I think that would really, you know, narrow the focus and give us a data-driven decision on, you know, what we can afford, what's realistic, what's not realistic.
Right.
So,
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate it.
What are we doing next, boss?
I don't know, I'm just kinda looking at the list here,
You wanna skip over 2, right?
I'm sorry?
Do you wanna skip over number 2?
We doing the road tour next, or at the end?
I don't have much of the other stuff ready. I know the pipes, we don't have any news on that, we don't have any more bidders. Rob's trying to get, the local well drillers to bid on it. Air exchange and the center drain, he hasn't finished the specs. Or he was just finishing the specs.
They were over there
and
yesterday.
he's sending them out.
Yeah, they were over there yesterday.
Rob was?
So,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I would like to make a motion to give the Alexandria Bay Community Association that check that we give them every year for their spring deal.
Is this for, is that their standard, like what we budgeted for, or is this a motion to give them the ARPA funds that were remaining?
Well, what
Or
we
is
did
it
with,
all
the motion would be to give them the ARPA funds, the $5,100 that we moved into that category
Okay.
at the last meeting.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll second that.
We already budgeted it,
Yes.
right?
Yes,
Mel?
we did a budget transfer at the last meeting.
Yeah, we did, I remember seeing
Set
it.
that up.
Yeah.
So you made a motion?
I'll second.
Second by Gene, or by Tim, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, none. I don't have anything else unless you wanna, I don't know if you wanna talk about the road. That'd probably be best when we go. I got a file for everybody. That's not for 15 to 20 minutes. Is Zach coming here?
I don't know.
I think he is.
I'm sure he would come early if we wanna get it going.
Tell them, come on down.
Yep.
That's my opinion.
I'd like to start doing some, employee evaluations next week. Is it okay with you guys if I just call you randomly and try to set it up a day or two ahead if you're available?
Yep.
And obviously late in the day for you or whatever,
Yeah.
I think there should be 2 people there, don't you? Right?
Yeah.
What is,
Definitely.
yeah, what's the, predictability and the battle rhythm for these? Are they twice a year? We talked about it, I can't recall. Are you doing it once a year?
That's what I thought. I know that other people have mentioned twice a year.
So what do we have it in our policy?
No,
We putting it in our policy?
we need to.
We should.
We haven't done any evaluations and,
So yeah, I'd make that part of our DNA and our culture,
Yeah,
is that, you know, we put that in our policy, that it, you know, we're gonna do employee evaluations yearly. It's something that's predictable for the employees, and they can, you know, they realize it's new, one, so they can kind of plan for it, and two, they can understand where it's coming from and the why, 'cause sometimes the unknowns are, I guess, scary to people, you know what I mean? Like, all of a sudden, why are you doing an evaluation? They automatically go to the negative, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
oh, yeah.
Oh, well, wait a minute, I did something wrong. Well, no, you didn't do anything wrong, you might have done something good, but this is just going to be the new, culture that we have within the town, is to do employee evaluations. And that's what we should be doing anyways, that's the right thing to do, to give people feedback on where they are, or are not meeting
and it really will
expectations.
help us too, because we need to know what their plans are, you know?
Absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
great point.
Okay. Anything else?
Doing the road tour?
Doing a road
Zach
tour.
wants me to come out
When?
right now. He wants to talk for a minute.
Alright, we are gonna,
I'll be right back.
We're gonna adjourn this, or
we're
are
gonna
we?
adjourn?
Wait and see what everybody wants to do.
He's out there, he wants to talk, so.
We can adjourn, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Tim, second by Sean. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
Look at the sound. You got the keys still? I left it. That'll be fun, Mark, but I'll walk it up.
I'm sorry, the road tour will be fun. Mind if I grab a quick interview with you while we wait for the,
We're gonna be hour and a half